Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 77, Letting Go of Perfectionism.
Does this sound familiar?
Oh my God, I have so much to do today.
Don't forget to breathe.
But I have almost 400 emails in my inbox and 30 phone calls to make.
Have you looked into getting a virtual assistant yet?
Oh, and I need to schedule all my social media posts.
Did you drink anything today?
I had coffee.
Did you eat today?
Did I mention coffee's a bean?
This is Small Biz Life.
Hey guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Small Biz Life. We are excited to be with you again this week. My name's Kristin Ingram.
And I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And we are the co-owners of Ingram Digital Media, Inc., which is a company that inspires, educates, and empowers people to live their lives better.
Wow, that sounds awesome. Actually, it's not quite perfect. Let's just start all over.
Oh, stop. So, I think that in our travels, whether it's been in the Small Biz Life community, which if you're not a member of, you can go to facebook.com/group/Small Biz Life, or whether it's in our paid membership group, Small Biz HQ, or just kind of going around the internet and all the groups that, we interact with.
A lot.
Perfectionism is an issue that a lot of people are struggling with.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure if it's because people are all perfectionists that we're seeing, or if because they use perfectionism as an excuse. I think it's a little bit of both.
I do too.
Yeah,
I think so. I think that it's kind of been a way for people to say, well, if it's not perfect, then I can't do it. And we're going to kind of talk about that when we look at the signs of perfectionism.
Yeah, but one of the things, there's nothing wrong with the desire to continually innovate and improve the way you do stuff and to try and get the work you're doing to perfection. It's something, if you listen to our earlier episodes to now, I believe we're better at doing podcasting than we used to be. And we're going to continue to get better. And we would like to have our podcast perfect. We would like to have everything that we do perfect. But that doesn't stop us from doing.
Right. Yeah, no. And I think that that's really the difference between, your normal perfectionism and neurotic perfectionism.
And Small Biz HQ, that's what we call good or enough.
That's right. Exactly. So, shout out to Amy for posting that. We were on our call last week, and we were talking about some of the stuff about perfectionism, and she came out and she said, as my husband said, good or enough. We were like, yes, that's awesome. I love that. And that's really, that's the thing that we're striving for, is that we want to put out good content. We want to put out, good products. But when you're striving for everything to be perfect, you're never going to launch. You're never going to release.
Here's the thing. I don't know. Back in about 2005, we bought a website called Gardual.com. And it is a site that we do use today. However, for about 10 years, nothing happened with it.
Yep.
And the reason is I was going to use it to share my fantasy, my make-believe world with the internets, as people like to say. And I wanted to basically push a button one day and have my entire giant world pop up for everyone. And because of that, it forced me to procrastinate and really get nothing done for about 10 years. Maybe not quite 10, but for about 10 years, I never got closer. It's like I came up with a few ideas on how to share it out, and which were pointless because I had nothing to share, because I never took the steps to start putting stuff onto the website.
Right. And to give you a sense of the amount of information, Jeff has a world. So think of the earth and trying to chronicle the entire history of the earth with all of its peoples and all of its religions and all of its cultures from the Stone Age to today.
That sounds crazy.
But that's what you were trying to do.
Yes.
And it's like, really? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. And you end up, you probably ended up launching the site like 2 years ago.
Yeah. And it was for another podcast.
Right. But, but if you kind of think about the totality of the project that he was trying to do, there was just no way that, you'd ever get to the point where you would push the button and say it's done.
And because of that, though, it stopped me from getting any closer. I would come up with new stuff, which would even add more work, which just perpetuate the problem. So one of the things we want you to understand is we're not judging you for doing this.
Right. We've been there.
We both have been there at different times, to different degrees. And it's something that will probably come up and slow you down again. We find this very important that you can identify when this is happening in you. Because this is, I think, one of the most common fears, as people call them, one of the voices in the heads that stop people from achieving stuff. And so we really wanted to address this specifically.
Right. So, we want to start with looking at some signs of perfectionism. And, we found a great blog series at personalexcellence.co. And we're going to link all 3 of these articles in the show notes. But I think she does a really good job talking about perfectionism, the signs of perfectionism, some of the dangers. So we're going to link all of these episodes in the show notes. But
there's specific parts that we want to focus on in this.
Yeah, especially for small business owners, because these are things that I've heard from a lot of different people kind of going through our travels. So one of them is that you have a very specific manner in which things should be done. And I want to kind of add to this a little bit because there's also the search for the perfect way to get things done. I know that a lot of you are struggling, that there's this aspect of your business that you're not happy with, and you can't move forward until you figured out the specific, proper, perfect way to handle this aspect of your business. And that can be how you manage your tasks. That can be how you share on social media. But there's this one thing that you keep hunting, that there's got to be this perfect way.
If I can find this key, everything will fall into place. My sales will increase 10,000-fold. Whatever I'm doing will be perfect. It's, remember that old Staples commercial, where people go and they press that easy button? The reason that commercial was around for so long and it worked is because far too many of us are looking for the easy button.
Right.
And the problem is, especially as you're starting off, especially if you have a limited budget, and even if you have an unlimited budget, things start off messier than they end up. So when you start off, sometimes you have to make compromises on how things get done so you can start utilizing it. And as you utilize it, we do talk a lot, in HQ and on this podcast about how to, identify your priorities of things to take out of your control. But you have to start doing it to really learn where what we like to call the pinch points are. And that's not just us. A lot of people use that term pinch point. It's the area of greatest aggravation. But you have to start doing it because, there will be several pinch points along a workflow. And so the thing is, you identify the ones that hurt the most and you get rid of them one at a time. That part becomes simplified and automated over time. And then you get to a point where you can then replicate. You hear this a lot in restaurants making this mistake. It's like they open up, they do okay, they have pretty good food, and then they start opening up new restaurants. But the problem is they've not really perfected how to do the first restaurant yet. So then now they're spreading out their time. They're making it more complicated for themselves. And sometimes they get to it, but sometimes they'll fail because of this.
Right. And, the next one that I think is tied to this is that a lot of us have an all or nothing approach. That it's either it's going to be perfect or I'm not going to do it.
Yes.
And that's what keeps a lot of people from launching.
I mean, that's exactly what was stopping me for those 10 years for launching anything about my world, was because it was not all.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, we were actually on a call yesterday, and a lot of people in the chat roll were talking about this. Like, I can't get myself to launch. I have the pieces, but I can't finish those last little things. I can't pull them together, so I don't launch.
Yeah.
And, you really have to find a middle ground. There's this 80-20 rule, that states that, like, if you're 80% there, the 20% can be fixed later, but you've got to go.
Well, I think too, it's from following a bunch of different thought leaders out there. We've come to learn, and we're kind of bad at this, where we want all of the pieces in place when we launch. And a lot of these people don't do that, not the successful ones. A lot of them are launching, selling, and then going, oh, okay, wow, that sold. I better, make a course for that now.
Right. Like, I mean, it's funny. Like, I'll tell you, like, when we launched Small Biz HQ, our funnel sucks.
Yes.
It really does. And we're working on that. And, but we were able to deliver enough value through the podcast and through the other things that we were doing that we got people to sign up for HQ.
Wonderful people
who we just absolutely love. But, our sales funnel really needs some work.
Yeah. It wasn't our wonderful sales that pulled it off. It was the value we had given out to people, which made them want to invest in us. And we really appreciate them because of that. But our sales funnel is not even close to being ready at this point, and will be.
But we're working on it, right? But we launched.
See the whiteboard right now.
I know. But we launched the product, right? We're delivering the value within the product. And, we continue to put out the podcast. We talk about HQ, which there'll be a link to the show notes if you want to check it out, because it is a really pretty awesome program. But we didn't just say, oh, well, the sales funnel's not ready, and, we don't have all the pieces in place, so we have to wait, because then we would have missed out on 2 months worth of revenue, from the group that we have.
I think, once you have the outline of what you want to sell, if I had to do it again, instead of focusing more on the content side of it, I'd focus more on the funnel part first, would probably be the wiser lesson to learn from us. But the thing is, realize, if you're offering this big course that gets released over 74 weeks of someone's life, or however big it is, some of these courses are humongous. You don't need, your entire world done when you start selling. So you get, you need enough to have that first week. Then you need a sales funnel to try and get people into it. And then the benefit, if you go about that way too, is you can refine it in week 2 from the feedback you hear as people start going through the course. So you can make adjustments, maybe add in a few bonus modules that you didn't even tell them about because you had no idea were going to be in there. But you were delivering value to your customers. And but the thing is, once again, the whole world wasn't built. The whole course, especially for like that's a subscription site, so it's new content every month. So that one can't be done. But for people who do more discrete period of time courses, a 10, 12, however long week course, the trap is that you're so focused on creating the 47 weeks worth of content that you forget to start selling it. And then when your sales funnel isn't ready, when you're ready to launch and you launch too soon, you're going to have all of this content and you're going to give up very quickly because you just created 47 weeks worth of content and no one nibbled at it when you first try to launch it, and then you drop the product forever.
Right. So, I think another piece of this that I see a lot is that people they're really hard on themselves and they become depressed when they don't achieve their goals. And I think that's one reason that I think we push you to dream really big, is because it helps you value moving towards your goals, even if you don't hit them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the problem I've been growing with like SMART goals too. And I think perfectionist, not so much perfectionist, but sometimes the perfectionist people too do this where they like to go, well, I have a list of like 15 people and I know 4 want to buy my thing. So my SMART goal will be 6. For a year? For a day maybe? I mean, I know your audience is small, but you got to shoot bigger than 6.
Right.
So, and that's the other thing is too, is I'd rather you shoot for 1 billion and suffer with a couple 100,000.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, even with us, last year, we touched 990,000 people online through our various channels.
Mm-hmm.
And this year our goal is 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big goal. That's more than double what we did,
that's
last year.
50% growth. Yeah.
Right. So, I would encourage you to really look and say, how can I push my goals farther, but accept and celebrate progress?
And if that's something you're really stuck on, where you're coming up with these really small goals and maybe you're hitting them, but you feel like you're still not getting anywhere, go to smallbizlife.com/dreambig. That will help you dream bigger and then come up with essentially plans over different categories of your life on how you can get one step closer. And then you just kind of reevaluate it once a month. Did you get it? Is the goal right? And you just keep moving forward.
Right. And, and I think that, as part of this, I think when you make smaller goals, your success is never enough. Because you're like, well, I'm making my goals, but, I'm not making enough money or I'm not touching enough people. You're setting yourself up for disappointment when you create small goals. And I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive, but you're like, it's like, yeah, I got the gold sticker for getting an 80, well, there's still room for improvement. You could still do better. So when you're checking off all these little goals, they don't really seem meaningful. Every successful business has failures. And if you are constantly able to check the box to say, yes, I did it, and you're not experiencing any failures, you're not pushing yourself far enough.
And there was something I learned when I worked at UPS that, it's the last 5% is always the hardest. And so the other mistake people make is it's like, my goal is to replace my income, which is, let's say $100,000 a year. So my goal is $100,000 a year. Maybe I can get up to that 95,000, but then I really struggle that last 5% because I'm just trying to get to 100. And so the thing is, when you're shooting for short, distant increments, it's sometimes more difficult to achieve them because you're stuck in that last 5% of achieving. So if you're shooting further away and going, well, I got 95 this way, let me just double what I did there and see if I can get up, and double that, and then you're at 180,000. But you're so focused on getting the last 5%, and then you fail at that, and you're like, I'm never going to be able to leave my job because I can't get that last 5%.
Right. And I think, I see this a lot with people when they have weight loss goals, that they don't celebrate the fact that they've lost 90 pounds. They beat themselves up because they haven't hit 100, and it's like, you've got to take the time to say, wow, I lost 90 pounds, I lost a child, but I see that a lot.
I just lost 10 babies.
Yes. And that's like 10, that's
pretty big babies.
Yeah, those are big babies. And it's, so this, the last one that I want to discuss in this list, you procrastinate because you're waiting for the right moment, right? And, it's funny because I see this a lot with people who try to time the stock market, that they sell too late and they buy too late. So like, oh, well, I'm waiting for the peak, and they sell, when it crashes.
Because I'm going to sell high and buy low, and then they end up buying high and selling low.
Right. And I see this a lot with, with business owners. And I kind of, I fell into this trap when we were, waiting to launch, Small Biz HQ. There's a big name that I follow who launched like a small business course like 30 days before we launched HQ. And I was like, really? But the thing is, we were waiting for that right moment, like, okay, we're going to launch it for January, when we could have launched it probably 6 months before, and we didn't. And we were waiting for that right moment.
And at this point, the sales funnel would be good. It would be automated, and we could be focusing on growing and delivering even better content. But now, we lost 6 months of our life. Gone.
Right. So that's the thing. So, there is never a right moment, but there are lots of wrong moments, and the longer you wait, the more people are going to come up with your idea. We all think that we have something unique, but we don't.
No.
It's the way we deliver it. It's our personality. It's our perspective. That's what makes it unique. It's not the idea. There are lots of small business, online courses and membership sites and whatever out there. There are lots of business podcasts out there. There are lots of fantasy books out there. There are a lot of websites that help students with their accounting out there. Does that mean we shouldn't do it?
No, because even if you somehow magically come up with a completely unique idea, which I would want to see, even if you do that, there's no reason to think that people want you to teach them it. You're going to have an audience that you build no matter what. And it might be easier if you're the first person on the show, but Google was not the first search engine. But it's the one almost everyone uses now.
Right.
So don't worry about the unique. Don't worry about anything but delivering a really good product and great value to your customers.
Right. So, let's kind of start to talk about some dangers of perfectionism. And I want to know, if you see some of these in you. The first one I want to talk about is procrastination.
Let's do that one last.
You want to do that one last?
I'm joking.
I'm like sitting here, I'm trying to do my thing, Arr. I love you. I really do.
So very, very much.
So very, very much. So procrastination. I think, and again, this is kind of like one of those chicken and the egg arguments. Is it your procrastination that's causing the perfectionism, or is it the perfectionism that causes the procrastination?
And the real truth is, it does not matter.
Right. Because the thing is, just like we were just talking about, if you are waiting for it to be perfect, you might miss the boat.
Yeah.
And that could be, revenue because somebody comes up with a product that's similar to yours before you do it. It could be the fact that you never launch it at all. And it's not healthy for your business.
Yeah. Or for your emotional well-being.
You got to get out there. You got to launch it. Whatever it is, whether it's your consulting business, whether it's an online product, whether it's a new product line in your brick and mortar, you've got to get out there.
You might not know who your perfect avatar is. You might know very little, but you can still start.
Right.
And you know what you're going to find out? The kind of people who actually listen to you. Because it's like sometimes our perception of who our perfect avatar is does not match up with the reality. So you can, which is one thing too, where I'm like, don't obsess over it. Create this character of this person you talk to for, your various outreaches, and then just use it, and you can slowly modify it over time. Because I do like to have the ability where I can envision someone I'm talking to, but then over time you have to listen and pay attention to your audience, because the people who listen to you are the ones who listen to you, and it might not be Sally or Fred or whoever you've named your avatar.
Right, and I think this next one, I think a lot of times we get a skewed view of reality, and we've had this happen with us. Last night we were actually brainstorming a product that Jeff is working on for his audience, and we're thinking about like the content that we're going to put together for them. And, it's kind of funny because sometimes we sit there and we're like, no, you can't do that. That's too basic.
And then we do something that we think is too basic and people love it. And you're like, oh.
Right. So, I think a lot of times we're trying to put out content that challenges us. And we forget to realize that most of our audience, most of the people that we're interacting with are us 5 to 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you're trying to help people and teach them things, or you're doing coaching, anything related to health and wellness, we're looking at it as if we were our own ideal customer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the case. You're trying to help people that are trying to get to where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is just critically important to always keep that focus in mind. We're talking about for this product that, we're going to show people how to set up a Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, well, that seems kind of silly. That's pretty easy. And we're like, but how many people that follow you don't have a Facebook page?
Mm-hmm.
So I really think, that you've got to make sure that you're focused on, I think we keep going back for this new product. What are things we wish we knew 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Let's teach them that.
Yes.
Right. And that's kind of where we're going with this new product. And, don't let your view of reality skew, your product and service design. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think that's that piece. I think a lot of people that strive for perfection end up becoming really unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
Either they were unhappy before they started this process, which is causing the perfectionism, or, striving through the perfectionism and not feeling like, you're making any progress is causing you to become unhappy. And it's really hard to keep doing this. I know a lot of you have side businesses, or you have, a business that takes up a lot of your time.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't love what you're doing, you're not going to keep at it.
No.
I tell people all the time, don't chase the money. Chase what you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And, I see a lot of people out there that they'll throw out an idea and you're like, wow, that sounds kind of crazy. And then they're crushing it because they're passionate about it.
Yep.
I mean, even like, with your fantasy world building podcast, like last month you crushed it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I can't believe there are that many people that are listening to this, but there's an audience out there because you're passionate about it.
Yep.
A big issue that I see with small business owners is that you are disregarding your health and wellness. And Jeffrey's kind of making a face like, no, not me.
Yes, let's talk about these people. But I really had an issue with this my last probably several years. When I was working this part-time, and it sort of kicked in, and I don't know if it's because I'm now working at something I'm passionate about and I want better health so I could do more of it and I could be better at doing it. But really, I just kind of given up on doing anything, outside of the bare necessities to keep going. I mean, that was it.
And I think, because of that, I think your energy suffered, I think your health suffered. We talk about this a lot on the show about how self-care is important, about how your health is important. That's why we factored it into the Dreamcatcher assessment because, I tell people all the time, you can't take care of anyone else, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's your clients, if you don't take care of yourself first.
And I think a big part of that is just the regret that is eating you from the inside, which is one of the big reasons really on both shows that we've been kind of pushing this idea of we understand there's regret in life. And sometimes you're required to make decisions that take you down paths that you don't necessarily want to be on. But that does not mean you shouldn't be working towards getting rid of the thing that you regret. And a lot of times it's easy.
Right.
By just starting.
Right. So, and that's the thing. It's like, if you have a lot of regrets, that is more incentive for you to start because the longer you wait,
trust me,
the more regrets you'll have. And we actually had a conversation about this, a couple days ago where you're kind of saying, now that you're 46, how much time do you have left to do everything that you want to do? And in full disclosure, Jeff came home about a week before he was supposed to have his final day at work and said they screwed up, they changed the rules for the retiree health insurance. I need to stay another 5 years. And mind you, I had the flu at this point, so my head was kind of foggy. But that was, I just couldn't imagine you waiting until you were 51 to start doing this full time. Because I just know, you could write a book every 6 months for the rest of your life and not get everything out.
Oh, yeah, I'll never get that out. Even if I started when I was 1.
Yeah, because the stories are just right. Yes, you are full of it. But I didn't want you to wait another 5 years. I didn't want you to have any more regrets. And so luckily your employer was wrong.
Yes.
So that was a good thing. But I just said, I'm like, no, this makes no difference in whether or not you're leaving. Because we have way too much stuff to do. And we need to get on it and we need to go. But
Which for us was the right call based on our financial situation and all of the stuff put together. We're not saying you should necessarily leave your job today to start your dreams, but you can start working towards doing it because trust me, we spent 5 years, before we got there, getting to a point where we could do that. And really longer if you consider getting rid of the debt. Maybe like 10 years ago is when we started trying to get rid of the debt. So, but it gives you motivation to do stuff like get rid of your debt. It gives you motivation to do side stuff and getting started. What kind of outreach can I do today?
Right.
Which is why I always say, even if you don't know exactly what you want to do, start outreaching, start sharing yourself because ultimately people want relationships with the people they do business with. So the sooner you can start building relationships with people, the better. It might lead you to a better idea than what you thought you had for a business. It might lead you to better products because you're talking and engaging with people who need and want your help.
Right. So, let's talk about, so if you want to overcome your perfectionism, let's talk about some things that you can do. And I think the first thing that all of you should do is determine whether or not your perfectionism is healthy or detrimental. Okay. And so the first thing you should think about is, how do you feel about your goals? Do your goals motivate you? Are you excited by them? I think when we did Dreamcatcher, when we actually came up with that assessment.
Aha moment.
Right. It was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Let's get there. And even if we make it halfway there, things are going to be freaking amazing.
Belize, you will have higher speed internet when I'm done with you.
That's right. whereas if you have an unhealthy perfectionism, you feel weighed down by your goals. You don't even want to think about making goals because you are so afraid that you're not going to hit them.
Yeah.
And I would even, add into that you make such small goals, that they're easy to check off, because you need those, wins.
Or goals that you can artificially fulfill. Say I could create a goal today, and I can say by the end of March, I'm going to have 100,000 Twitter followers, and I guarantee you, I could freaking nail that goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have like 1,700 followers. I could crush that goal. I know exactly how to crush that goal. I mean, if I'm willing to invest, I could probably get it done by next week. But the thing is, I don't want 100,000 fake followers. I don't want to go through and like 100,000 people to get them to like me back. Probably 150,000 people to get 100,000 to like me back.
Right.
But I could just do that. And yeah, look, I've hit my big goal for the year. But it's a goal that, where does it get my business? Nowhere. It actually gets me backwards because now I've not been spending time actually really growing the audience.
Right.
Which is more difficult. Sometimes the work is methodical and boring even when you're doing what you love. But because you get to do what you love, it helps motivate you to do that slog work.
Right. Exactly. So
slog is a good word too.
So the next piece of this is, is your perfectionism causing you to take action, and improve as you're going along, or is it causing you to procrastinate? Right. And you're looking for that perfect moment to do something, the perfect time, you need things to be perfect.
Reading through this, I would suspect most people who call themselves perfectionist are the neurotic version.
Oh yeah, no, I think so. I think if you identify as a perfectionist, you're probably in the neurotic category. Are you satisfied? Do you celebrate your victories? Even when they're small victories.
Winning Wednesdays, do you post?
Right, exactly. It's funny because we'll have people on the Winning Wednesday post, and I'm going to call you guys out, that will like the post, but they don't share anything. And
you're telling me in a week you had 0 successes.
And, it's funny because like the week that I had the flu, it's like my success was, hey, I emailed my students to tell them that class was canceled and I went back to bed.
Now, if you tell me you're not posting on Winning Wednesday because you're too busy because you're kicking ass, awesome.
Right.
But if it's because you don't think anything that you've done warrants going in there, or sometimes you'll see people put stuff in there like, hey, last Saturday I sold 10 million widgets. Why did you wait to today to tell us that?
Right.
Winning Wednesday's small wins. That's an instant post.
Right. Versus, if you're on the neurotic side of perfectionism, you feel like your effort is never enough. You don't think that you can celebrate because you did not get enough done. And, I think one thing that really helped our mindset was when we started celebrating things. Last
Being
night.
Grateful every day.
And it's funny because like last night we went out for dinner to celebrate Jeff's, the first week with the company. It
was a belated celebration because after she got the flu, I got the flu. So it wasn't pretty for a couple weeks in the household. But we still celebrated the first week, even though it definitely did not go to plan.
Right. But it's funny because like last week we talked about the first day. That is not what the first day looked like.
No, it was horribly off.
I think there was a lot of sleeping. There was napping. But it's all about making sure that you take care of yourself because like, Friday we recorded a whole bunch of content, right? Yesterday we did,
I was busting it all day yesterday. It was my first day. I really had a solid day. I got kind of wonky a little bit in the afternoon, but we got through it, listened to someone who I found inspirational. Thank you, Brendan. And helped get me going again. And then we went out to celebrate, and it was it was my first decent day of work in over a week.
But the thing is, it's like we didn't we didn't wait
Yeah.
because we didn't think that we accomplished enough. We said, you know what? We got a lot done in the last 2 days. Let's go out and celebrate that, and celebrate the fact that you're with the company now full time. So, I think that this is one I see a lot. What is your attitude towards failure?
If it is, and I kind of do this in a way, but I'm joking usually, and that is I'll beat myself up. I'll call myself an idiot or something like that, and I'm usually joking when I say that. But a lot of people actually tear themselves apart.
Even with like small failures.
I was at a
mistakes.
client meeting and I was trying to take notes and my pencil broke and I couldn't take notes properly and the whole meeting was ruined. And did you get the business? Yeah. Your pencil lead broke then.
Big freaking deal.
When you got to your car, record what you remember on your freaking phone and get back to the office and write it down there. Yeah, that kind of stuff happens.
All right. And, a healthy way to look at failure is to realize that, every successful business has failures. You pick the wrong product, you pick the wrong time, you pick the wrong font,
Don't tell them that.
But it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be cataclysmic.
Trust me. Picking the wrong font maybe hurts your conversions on your business. But if you're getting 0 conversions on your business because you have no products, it's not because of the font.
Right. But the thing is, it's going to happen. And so if you learn to, learn from your mistakes and your failures, right, that is the healthy way to deal with it. And that will help you improve going forward.
Yes.
But, when you just beat yourself up, you're not taking the time to learn from it because you're so focused on beating yourself up.
Yeah.
So, I think, when you start to kind of look at, those things and then, how long do you stew over the past? Do you look at that as, learning experiences and growth experiences, or do you just kind of stew over it and you regret it?
Bring 2 pencils to your next meeting. Don't get stressed out over it.
Right. So, one of the ways to kind of overcome your perfectionism, so if you find that you have a lot of these, unhealthy tendencies, is to start reframing your mindset that it's not all or nothing, right? It's good or enough. Okay. Because and that doesn't mean that like you put out crappy content.
No.
I'll tell you we were recording the intro video for Small Biz HQ. And we're doing the intro video for this week's content.
Then my joke was take 84.
I think we re-recorded it like 4 or 5 times. It's like we found out. It was funny because there was a typo in one of the slides and we were talking about cameras and we kept calling it DLSR because that was on the slide. And I'm like, that's not right. It's DSLR. And we figured that out like 35 minutes into the video when we had referred to it as such probably 15 times.
And where in theory we could have edited over that. It wasn't worth it because then you're not these strange. Oh, and I'm so excited to talk about this DLSR camera and
DSLR.
Let me re-edit that.
But the thing is, it's like, were there other kind of, were there other things in the video that weren't perfect? Yes. But we said, this is really good content, right? The 5th time we recorded it.
As they're
really good.
looking for this non-existent camera to help them.
Right. Yes. But it also, it helped us too to say, hey, let's kind of move things around. Let's put some things in post-production rather than, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good. And it has to be something that's valuable to your audience.
Yeah, because the point is you're trying to deliver more value to the customer than the value they gave up and the money they give you.
Right. Exactly. And so that's kind of the thing is, we're always, when we do Small Biz HQ, we're kind of looking at it from the mindset that like every single month could be like a $300 course,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the level of content that we're putting out.
Yeah, I'd
every
say
month.
they're usually between $100 to $300 course in content. So yeah, we try and crush that one. But,
Right.
and here's the thing to keep in mind too, right? Think of Microsoft Word. This product's been around for a cajillion years, in computer years at least. And when Microsoft can produce a version of that without bugs, with lots of programmers, huge budgets, when they can do that, then maybe the rest of us can go, why can't we make perfection? And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good things. The earlier in the cycle you find a mistake, as you're getting towards delivering a product, the cheaper it is to fix it. So it is very important to shoot to get it error-free. But realize that if you have multi-billion-dollar companies that make flaws, and sometimes big ones like Samsung and their phone battery flaw last year, they happen. Read any book by any major publisher that's long, you will find a typo, especially in the first edition.
Yep. It's going to happen. Nobody's perfect. And I love that there's, I believe it's in India, when they are weaving fabric, they intentionally put a mistake in the fabric because they believe that only God is perfect, and so they intentionally put flaws, in their work
to make sure that there's at least one in there,
right? But I think that that's kind of brilliant. It's like we're striving for this perfection when rationally we know that it's not attainable. And so I think that when you really, when you realize that perfection is not attainable, the only thing that's attainable is really freaking good.
Yeah.
It reframes things. People who have been along this journey with us, they know we've had trouble with conference calls. Okay. We've had typos in show notes, and it's cool because our community, like, they'll point that out. They'll be like, hey, I found an error for you. I'm like, cool, thanks. And we go fix it.
Especially when you focus on delivering great stuff, your community will help protect you too. It's like, I've lost count of the number of times where, Kristin or I have been contacted by someone in our Facebook group to let us know that someone's spamming.
Yep.
And how much time does it save us to have to not spend all of our time focusing on watching the thing? But because we're building the relationships with the people in our free group and in our members group for Small Biz HQ, which it would be much less likely to get spammers in there, but it would cost them to spam us, I guess. But they would, but it gives them partial ownership over the community.
Right.
Which they deserve, which part of the community belongs to them too. Of course it does, because they make it better.
Well, it was funny. There was one time that Jeff he wasn't feeling really well and he was super tired, and he put up his podcast episode for their podcast, and one of his followers in Australia sent him a message and was like, I think you put up the wrong episode. It was really great. It was funny, but I don't think that was the right episode. And it was like you would put up like outtakes that you were saving.
Yeah, because essentially my co-host on that show, Mike Miller, and I, we record in different locations. So essentially we have the system where we are basically both locally recording our content. He gives me his MP3, and I will then put it together and edit the show. And so usually at the beginning, because we're trying to get each other psyched up into a proper energy and framework to do a show, there's a lot of joking around. We'll tease each other, try and distract each other. just we'll have a lot of fun. And I saved it because it was really good for an outtake. And then I uploaded that because I didn't use my normal naming conventions. And I saw an MP3 with the episode number. I'm like, oh, there it is. Because I forgot to put the word outtakes in it. Whoops.
But then it was really funny because then it created buzz in your group because people were like, we want to hear it. We want to listen to it.
And some people were disappointed because my fan in Australia let me know most of the people in the U.S. didn't ever get it because once I updated it in my Lipston feed, when they downloaded it from iTunes, it was the correct episode.
Right. So, but it's like you can either take that and say, hey, that's really cool. And I created this buzz. And at some point I got to put this out for people, or you say, oh my God, I can't believe I made that mistake. And I should just quit podcasting right now.
That's right.
Really? Stop it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I think the last thing that that I want to kind of talk about in this, and I think this affects so many aspects of your life. Mm-hmm. You need to learn to respect and love yourself. And I know for some of you that might seem really wonky and a little woo-woo, okay? But that I'm not a woo-woo kind of person. If you don't respect yourself, mm-hmm. it's really hard to do this. Mm-hmm. Because...
anything really.
Right. Because you're going to ignore your health. Okay. You're going to be super hard on yourself because you're trying to get external validation mm-hmm. because you don't respect yourself.
And the problem is too, then you end up working to fix the wrong thing. Like, my sales aren't good enough. I'm the problem. And the problem is you're not working on your message. You're not working on your delivery. You're not working on getting better people to get in front of better people to sell to. Those are probably the problems. If you're trying to sell and you have a lousy picture on Facebook, which draws them into an ad, you have a lousy ad and it's seen by 18,000 people and you get 2 click-throughs, you probably have a problem with your ad.
Right. So,
it's not you.
Right. Exactly. Fix the ad. And I think that's what happens a lot of times is that, when you don't respect yourself and your business has a failure, you make it all about you. Mm-hmm. I'm not a good speaker or my content sucks. And a lot of times it's, it's funny because when we run ads in the past, we put up an ad, it didn't convert well. We changed the font. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or the image.
Right. And we popped it back up and poof, conversions. Mm-hmm. So.
That's why you use small budgets when you start new ads.
Right. Exactly. Because you're trying to kind of see what works. But it's, it's not you. Mm-hmm. Maybe you need to, learn more about sales copy. Mm-hmm. Maybe you need to do a video so that people can connect with you better. It's not you.
No.
But
no one is good enough at every aspect of a business to be perfect.
Right.
The thing is, it's easier when you grow, you can outsource some of those problems that you have, but you have to get there.
Right. And I think this one aspect that if you can learn to respect yourself again, if you can learn to value yourself again, and this might be, you might need to, go work with a professional, you might need to go read a book like Boundaries, find out whatever it's going to take for you to start to respect yourself. And for some of you, you may never have had a healthy level of respect for yourself. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, then you may need to go see a professional.
Yeah. Especially too, we all have ghosts in our closets, skeletons in our cupboards. So
skeletons in the cupboard.
Yeah. It was good or enough. So the thing is, and when you get into this mindset, you use those things to punish you. Like because I did X as a child, I called my mother a bad name, I can't sell this new product. No. It's once again, it's the same way you look for the easier solution to make it all work perfectly. You look for the easy thing to blame when it doesn't work correctly.
Right. And actually, it's interesting because if one thing that you may want to kind of start with, and this might help you kind of warm up to, doing some more work with this. Brendan Burchard wrote a book called Life's Golden Ticket, and I'll put it in the show notes. Jeffrey's starting to dance a little bit. I can hear him in his head. He's going, I've got a golden ticket. But that book really and it's a story. It's fiction. It really got me to start thinking about kind of the things that people have said in our past or done in our past that kind of create those deep wounds that cause us to lose respect for ourselves. And I think, it was a really good read. It was a quick read. I think I read it in like a day. But that might be a good place to start. If nothing else, to say, hey, wait, I think that too. So I'm not the only person that's had that issue before. Because I think a lot of times when we're not willing to seek out help, we think that we're the only person that has ever had this problem. And that's not the case.
Yeah. Odds are very, very, very low on that.
Especially with women. A lot of women struggle with this issue.
All right. I think too, and a lot of women I've seen who struggle with this issue end up just trying to do everything in their house. They try and go to school for their children. They start doing everything because it's the only way they think that anything can get done. And then they put so much on their plate that they get to this point where they can no longer get anything done correctly. And then it just turns back in on themselves because, wait, I was doing this, but I've kept adding more and I've kept adding more and I've kept adding more. And you get to a point where no matter how bright you are, you can't take on and juggle anymore. And then you drop all of the balls.
Right. And I think that this also kind of leads to, women not being willing to outsource things, whether it's the cleaning of their house or yard work or, even, I see a lot of small business owners that they're struggling to find time for their business, but they're unwilling to bring somebody in to help them with their little kids. So they're like, okay, what can I do so that my 2-year-old can now have a 2-hour attention span?
Yes.
And my sister-in-law is actually, she is the baby whisperer. That's what we call her.
La la.
And she said that, the average 2-year-old has a 10-minute attention span. So, but in our search for perfectionism.
Is that not right? A 2-minute?
A 10-minute, I'm sorry. A 2-year-old has a 10-minute attention span.
No, I think that's a pretty good attention span, isn't it?
For a 2-year-old, yeah. But the thing is, for you, gee, yeah, well, we're working up to 10 minutes for you. But, it's like we're expecting okay, I want my 2-year-old to have an hour-long attention span that I can kind of put them somewhere so that I can get
through
done.
my Pomodoro block.
Right, but you're like, all right, well, why don't you get like a teenager to come in or, maybe somebody who's retired to come in for a couple hours a few mornings a week. And like, well, no, because I have to take care of the children. Well, you can't take care of the children and work at the same time. It doesn't work. And I think that, if you think back to like the 1950s, 1960s, before women really started going into the workplace in the 70s, women took care of everything at home and took care of the children. Okay. And this is nothing against guys. This is just societally how it worked. And then in the 70s, women started going to work, but they still did most of the household tasks and did most of the child rearing, and then, somewhere in like the 90s, we decided the kids had to do like 90,000 different activities. So now, women are going to work all day and then they get get the kids, and then
they
they take them to
kids
90
for the next 5 hours.
right to 90,000 activities, and they're helping with homework. And oh, by the way, I want to have a side business too. And it's like everybody wonders why all these women are exhausted.
Well, that's so funny too, because I remember like I was a young child, and when my parents were scarring me day in and day out, and
Oh yeah, because you're so damaged.
I'm damaged. Can't argue that point.
I don't think that was your parents, though. I don't know.
But it was like, I forget, I was playing soccer and I wanted to do something else. And my dad cruelly looked at me and said, pick one. Mm-hmm. And you can do that. And if you stop doing that, well, maybe you can do something else, but no. Mm-hmm. I survived. I'm 46 now.
And you're damaged.
But I am damaged. So maybe you're right, new parents.
But part of the respect thing is saying, you know what? There's only so much I can do. Mm-hmm. There are only so many hours in the day. And when you respect yourself, you start to put up those boundaries. So I just kind of, I know we kind of ranted on that a little bit, but I want you to kind of think about that. Okay. What does your level of respect for yourself look like? Mm-hmm. And how is that affecting your business? Okay. So I hope that, we packed a lot into this episode. Make sure that you go to smallbizlife.com. We're going to have the links to all the articles that we used for this episode. We've got
there's a lot more.
Yeah, because there's a lot more here that we did not talk about. There's links to all the books that we talked about, different resources. So make sure that you go check that out. Again, that's smallbizlife.com. And thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
This was Small Biz Life.